welcome back to the University of Dallas Team of the Decade, Team of the 2010s. I'm Kevin Mcgirt. Thank you so much again for joining us again this week. We've gotten through the sprints, the mid-distance, and the long distance so far. We're going to be doing hurdles today, an event that has a very special place in my heart as we will proceed with the Team of the Decade. Let me reintroduce now Matthew Barber, my co-host and partner on this project. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well.
So, we've gotten through all of the normal running events. Now we come to the running events with a twist. Barriers.
They're obstacles.
And so, what's, other than the obvious difference of the hurdles and steeplechase barriers, what's different about hurdles compared to the other running events?
It's a technique event as well. Obviously, there's like technique that goes into running, block starts, form, but it matters a lot more in hurdles than it does in sprinting.
Well, I'm going to turn it over to you for this first reveal, the men's high hurdles.
The men's 110 high hurdle selection for the UD All-Decade team, we have Kevin Mcgirt.
I'm very honored that I selected myself for this team.
Congratulations, Kevin.
Well, to be fair, you did agree with the pick, and you're actually the one who picked first. I'm actually the one that agreed with it.
Yes, I agree with it.
All right, so Kevin Mcgirt, the Team of the Decade 2010 high hurdles, a PR of 16 seconds, .66. The third fastest UD 110 hurdles of all time. Sixth place at the 2019 SCAC Championships. The silver medalist at the 2020 Leap Day Relays at Millsaps University. And the two best hurdle times of the decade. And so as we look at, well, me. All right, give it to me straight. What do you think about me?
Well, you know, your strength is really in the 400 hurdles, Kevin. This is one of those things that we can look forlornly on and wonder how much better you could have gotten, because we really saw you take the step forward in the 2019 shortened COVID season. So I really don't know how much better you could have gotten, but you really started to figure things out, it looked like, in 2019.
2020.
2020, right. You are correct.
And just, the big difference was actually an accident, is how we figured it out. At Texas Tech, the first indoor meet that we've been to in something like 5 years. Running the 60-meter hurdles, usually I would run 8 steps to the first hurdle. By accident, I don't know if I was just faster or more confident, I don't know what it was, but I somehow got to hurdle number 1 in 7 steps instead of 8. And that race was the smoothest, most comfortable I've ever felt in the high hurdles. So after that, at Hardin-Simmons 2 meets later, and then at Millsaps 1 meet later, both times were run under 17 seconds. That's the first time I've ever done that. So there's just something about getting there 1 step sooner, just smoothed out the whole race.
Yeah.
So we'll take a look now at my theoretical data. 16.66 seconds is good for winning the high hurdles twice in the SCAC history. Once in the decade, 2, 1, and 2, gold, silver, bronze in all 28 years, 1, 1, and 1 in the decade. And so this will be something we're going to come back to towards the end, the more purely speculative side of things. But as you mentioned, just kind of unlucky and unfortunate, because we never got to practice hurdles very much.
Yeah.
And so especially, I think, if Coach Logan Griffith, if you're watching this, which I hope you are, how's it going?
Recently engaged Logan.
I think would have, I think if he were here and he was there during the discovery of the get there a step sooner, I think that's something he would have been really excited about because we worked very well together when he was the hurdles coach.
I mean, he was really the key to unlocking you in the 4 hurdles.
And then on top of that, when we get to the 4 hurdles, Coach Marlon Baugh helped build upon what Coach Logan had started. But is there anything else? You kind of said it already, but is there anything else as far as the woulda, coulda, shoulda, as far as the high hurdles?
I just don't know where it would have gone. You know, I wasn't with you guys that season when you figured out the steps to the first hurdle. I imagine it would have been significantly faster. It was the first season, the first couple of races ever for you where you felt comfortable with it. You kind of figured it out. So I really don't know. It definitely, you would have been able to build more.
All right, well, that's the men's 110-meter hurdles. Now for the women's 100-meter hurdles. Our pick for the team of the decade is... Lizzie Depew. Lizzie Depew, our 100-meter hurdle selection. As we take a look at her achievements, 16.19 seconds in the 100 hurdles, which is the UD record for the 100-meter hurdles. 6th place at the 2014 SCAC Championships. The only woman to break 17 seconds twice in the 100 hurdles, and she has 2 of the top 5 hurdle times of all time. And so as we look at Lizzie and her numbers, tell us a little bit about Lizzie.
She was an exceptional hurdler, came in from high school, very comfortable with it. Of that, until maybe your last season or 2 on the team, was far and away our best technique hurdler. She was limited somewhat. She had recurring injury in her shins, and we couldn't hurdle maybe as much as we wanted to. I know it's always a struggle, UD track, trying to get time on the track. But with her, we had to manage her workload. But she was exceptional at the high hurdles. That was definitely her event. And the 16:19, I believe we ran at Tyler. Perfect race for her.
And so we'll take a look now at her theoretical data. Her 16:19 wins the conference 7 of 28 years, 2 of 10 in the decade, 7, 7, and 3 gold, silver, bronze for 17 of 28 all time, 2, 0, and 1 in the decade, 4.2 average for Depew, as her median score is 4th place, and her most frequent result is 4th place. So again, as we're starting to come down from the high of Prince and Katie McIntyre, we're starting to see some of the more middling times. Again, not 4.2 points, essentially 4th place is where her data basically says is a 4th place finish. It's not terrible, but it's not dominant like we've seen with some of the other athletes. And so, as we reach towards the end, do you think that with, obvious answer is yes, but do you think that an injury-free Depew would have exceeded some of these marks that we have for her?
For sure, but coming in from high school, it was an injury that she kind of already had, and once she was a UD student athlete, that was something that we were always going to have to manage and juggle, and we did to the best of our ability. Granted, even despite that, she was an incredible teammate. She was consistently in both relays, the high and the long hurdles. She was able to look back on a very good career.
All right, well, that is the men's and women's high hurdles. Now on to the intermediate hurdles.
I will announce the intermediate hurdles.
The 400-meter hurdles. Take it away.
The men's 400-meter hurdles for the University of Dallas All-Decade team, we have again one more time, Kevin Mcgirt.
Hello again.
You're welcome, Kevin. I picked you for this.
Well, I'm glad, because it would have been embarrassing if you didn't, based on some of the numbers we're going to see in a second.
Well, give us the numbers.
So, Kevin Mcgirt in the men's 400-meter hurdles, an all-time best of 54.84 seconds, which is the UD record. the 2019 SCAC Conference champion in the 400-meter hurdles, the second men's champion behind Prince Giadalor for an SCAC gold medal, and the top 10 times in the 400 hurdles all time. And as you can see, with all of that backing me up, that's kind of why it would have been embarrassing if I didn't get picked.
It was an obvious pick.
One of the, as we mentioned with Prince in the 100 and the 200 and Katie Mack and basically all of her events and some of the other athletes we'll see later, it was one of the most obvious picks in the decade team. So.
Well, all of our gold medal athletes have already demonstrated an ability in real life to win golds in the year that they competed. So you take those athletes' peak, including yourself, translates better all time.
Well, this is a phrase that I said to you many times after the times we'd come home for meets. Give me what's the good, the bad, and the ugly.
There's too many races at this point to go back on. I'm going to say ugly was 2018, when that would have been your first medal year, and you had a chance to beat
Cody Hall
from Trinity, and we clipped the last. I say we
didn't just clip. We
demolished, and a photo was taken of you on the ground, shaken up, and it got picked up by Runner Space.
Show that photo.
On Runner Space, they picked it up, and you went viral for a day. The most frequent comment was, "Why in the world is that guy wearing gloves?" So we're going to go with that as the ugly. The good, obviously.
Well, before you get to the good, the other comment had something to do with Gaddy Quinn, who was the Colorado College hurdler. It was his account. Someone was taking a picture. Well, it was like he was the main focus, so you can see me, as you can see,
back, yeah.
You can see me like kind of off to the side. It was his account, like someone was posting it of him, someone from Colorado, I assume,
okay.
And it was like half the comments I think were something like, "Yay, go Gaddy," or whatever, and then the other ones were, "Why is that guy wearing gloves?"
And then there were 3 other people on the ground, so it was like, why are these people on the ground?
Which I won't go into the whole story, but it's the reason I wore gloves was because I was honoring, back in my high school days as a soccer player, there was a athlete way back in the 1950s who played for Team USA in the World Cup who wore gloves. And so that's something I started to do during soccer. And then for track, I wanted to have a thing, and I think I actually had several things, but the first one, the original one, was I decided to keep wearing the gloves.
There you go.
So it's a longer story than that, but that'll do. So you're saying, that was the ugly. What was the good?
The good was the conference championship. All 2019, you were breaking your own personal record and the school record every week.
5 times in a row.
But that last week, as far as a conference goes, far and away the good. It was really high, and we obviously you were ranked nationally. We went for nationals. We didn't get there, but hell of a show.
And so the bad.
The bad. Let's go with that. Let's go with that 400 meter we talked about.
The bad. Okay. Yeah. That's fair enough. All right. So here are the theoretical numbers on myself. In the 400 meter hurdles, the 54.84 is good for winning the conference 22 of 28 years, 8 of 10 in the decade. 27 years, it medals 22, 5, and 0. Only 1 year I don't actually get a medal. It was 2009, and that was an exceptionally fast hurdle year. You had I think 2 of the fast top 5 times in the SCAC were run. There was a 52 and a 53 that were run that day, and then like a better 54. So that rate, I would have gotten 4th that day.
Yeah.
Which is, I don't know, I just think that's kind of bananas, just how fast that particular race was. And then
It's like running at nationals.
in the decade, 8, 10, and 0, gold, silver, bronze. Average points scored, 9.6, with a median and most frequent result of first place. And I don't mind bragging, this is the best event on the team.
The 9.6?
If you exclude the relays, this
Okay.
is the best individual event on the team.
There you go.
So
I did not know that.
we have a couple who are close, as we'll see later.
Okay.
But this is, like I said, I'm totally bragging right here. This is the best on the team. So a little bit more of the additional information on me, and there will be more to come later. Fourth best SCAC performance of all time, as you can see, 19 points on your screen. 3 medals, a gold and 2 bronze, and in 2019, the 8th best point total of 80 scoring athletes. And we mentioned Coach Logan earlier, and I couldn't resist throwing in a picture of him. That's the picture you see on your screen of me after I broke the record, with me and him walking at SAU at the Dan Beach Invitational. So, again, I got you, Coach Logan.
There you go.
So, well, that wraps it up for me, unless you have anything else you want to say.
No. Obviously a goal going forward before the COVID year for you would have, was nationals. You absolutely had a chance to go for it. And I'm sure we'll get to there whenever you do theoretical stuff, but great career.
All right, so now for the women's 400-meter hurdles, our selection is Anna Brunk. Anna Brunk, our selection for the women's 400-meter hurdles. Looking at her accomplishments, a minute 13:51, her best hurdle time. She's in the top 5 of hurdlers all time, and she has the 2nd fastest time of the decade. And so this was one of the ones, this is I think our first pick that we've gotten to where we haven't picked the best time. Elizabeth Depew actually has the best time with a minute 12, but Anna within a second. So why did we pick Anna over Lizzie?
Anna barely had a chance to train in the hurdles. She raced it twice. Is that accurate?
Twice in
this
18,
season.
I think, and then
that's
once
when
in 19.
And she ran the 113 during 18, right?
Yes, at conference.
Yeah. Ultimately, it boils down to during that season, if we had trained more in the hurdles, she absolutely had the capacity to do better. She ran about the same time Lizzie Depew did off of limited practice and 2 competitions versus Lizzie was a full-time hurdler. I think we mentioned Lizzie was exceptional at the high hurdles, but I mean, we're making this pick based off of what they did in their own season. Within their own season, I still think Brunk had a chance to run, 70 flat.
And so, take a look at Anna's theoretical numbers. As all time, her 1:13:51 wins 2 silvers and 2 bronze in the 28 years and just 1 silver in the decade. Her average point total is 0.9, which is actually the same as Lizzie's. And her median and most frequent results are 7th place and non-scoring. Not great, but it's, as you mentioned, she could have gotten to about 70 flat, which we have speculative numbers on that. And the speculative numbers, if she had gotten to a minute 10, would have been, she would have bumped up to 2.4 points average. Her median result and her most frequent result would have been 5th place.
And I think that would have been achievable within the 2018 season. Granted, she's a pole vaulter. That's where we spend a lot of our energy with her. But I think she had real talent in this event.
So 70 seconds is the time you mentioned is achievable. That would break the school record by almost 2 seconds. The school record for the 400 hurdles is about a minute 11 and change. So, it's too bad. It's one of those things that's too bad, but it's UD, and sometimes, very frequently, bad is what we get.
Well, I mean, to Brunk's credit, she always came in from winter break or from summer break ready for fall track or spring track in the best shape of any of our sprinter explosive type athletes. Obviously, distance runners are always at a different type of fitness level. But coming in at the beginning of a season, she was always rock solid, ready to go fitness-wise. And I think that would have translated exceptionally well to the high hurdles, especially with the limited practice we got in and how she was able to adapt to the form of hurdling very quickly. Obviously, she did it in high school, but she showed real talent in college.
Well, that's the end of the 400-meter hurdles, we now move on to the longer, harder version of the 400 hurdles, the 3,000-meter steeplechase. And our first pick for the men's steeplechase is Joseph Kilmer. Joseph Kilmer, our steeplechase selection for the team of the decade. As you can see on your screen, Kilmer ran a best time of 10 minutes, 21.84 seconds, the second fastest UD steeplechase all time, and he's one of only 2 men to actually break 10 minutes and 30 seconds in the steeplechase. And so this is actually, we're to have back-to-back picks where we did not pick number 1.
The fastest, yeah.
So Kevin Doherty, the number 1 pick, the number 1 athlete in the steeplechase, the school record holder with about a half a second faster steeplechase than Kilmer.
It was also a 10:21, just
So-
0.3.
I think 0.3, 0.5, about that,
Okay.
is about half a second faster.
Okay.
So why Kilmer over Doherty?
It's a very similar argument we used for Anna Brunk over Lizzie Depew. Joe Kilmer ran the steeplechase twice in his career. In his second race, he was half of a second off of the school record. Within that season, I think, based on the jump he was able to make at conference, we should have just run him in at least 1 or 2 more times earlier in the season, just based on his ability that he showed at the conference meet. He really had a chance to break it at that meet. The problem is he was all alone the last couple of laps and was kind of solidified in the place he got, and so it's hard to sprint out with a PR when you're all alone like that. But I mean, Kevin had a better steeplechase career. He ran it significantly more times. It was a consistent sub 10:30 guy. I just think that Kilmer in that season could have dropped even further. He could have been a 10:15 guy that day.
So we'll take a look at the theoretical data right now. So the theoretical data on Joe Kilmer, as his steeplechase time of 10:21.84 is identical essentially to all of Doherty's numbers. So we'll essentially be giving you Kilmer and Doherty's numbers together because they're all basically the same.
And in almost 2-mile race, they ran the same time. Like it was a coin flip.
So the 10:21.31 of Doherty and the 10:21.84 of Kilmer would have won once in 28 years, no time in the decade, 1, 2, and 4, gold, silver, bronze, 0, 1, and 2, gold, silver, bronze in the decade, both averaging 2.7 points, both having median finishes of 4th and 5th, and both having a most frequent result of non-scoring. So, as we mentioned, Kilmer didn't run it a whole lot, but we have a speculative projection that he could have run about 10 flat. And so, if that were the case, is the numbers of the theoretical numbers skyrocket to 16 medals in 28 years, 5, 5, and 6 all time, 1, 3, and 1 in the decade, and his most frequent result jumps up to 2nd. His median result, a combination of 3rd and 4th. And as we look at those numbers, is that kind of the thing that you saw potential for in Joe Kilmer?
Absolutely. I mean, these two athletes were very similar. They're taller distance runners. They both have a dual sport history. Both of them love basketball, very good at basketball. I know Joe also played a lot of tennis in high school. Both of them extremely coordinated, athletic, explosive athletes for distance runners. Typically, distance runners are more endurance-based. But both of these guys excelled at the steeplechase because of how strong and athletic they were. But just looking at what Joe was able to do in 2 races compared to Kevin's career through 2 seasons of steeplechasing, I firmly believe that Joe could have gotten that time down some more. Yeah.
And so as we wrap that up, just want to make a point because we forgot to mention this. Part of the reasoning when we were discussing this was that Kilmer also had a better 1500 time.
Yeah, I think that's more indicative to the steeplechase than the 5K is. Because obviously, the mile and the 5K are the two on either side of the steeplechase distance-wise. And Kevin was a great 5K runner. I think he got down to the 16:20s his sophomore year. But the speed and the strength required in the 15, I think, indicates better a steeplechase time, and Joe was strong in.
All right, so our final reveal of the day, the women's steeplechase, is Bridgette Kennedy. Bridgette Kennedy, our selection for the steeplechase of the decade. Bridgette's steeplechase best time, 12 minutes, 25.34 seconds, the second fastest steeplechase of all time. She was fourth in 2016 at the SCAC Championships. She also won the 2016 USCAA Invitational, winning a gold medal in steeplechase, and she has the distinction of also being the 3,000 steeplechase record holder for the USCAA, and also the only athlete on this list who has a record, who's holding a record that isn't the University of Dallas. I think that's pretty cool.
Oh, I guess, yeah, because a lot of those other USCAA records were from before this decade. I know Elena Yates, Bridgette Surser, I think they hold some records, but I hadn't thought about it. Yeah, that's crazy.
So, looking at Bridgette's accomplishments, she only ran the 1 year in 2016. How high do you think she could have gotten in steeplechase had she come back for more than one season? Because she was incredibly busy at UD. I mean, she was a classmate of mine. She was actually my boss at the University News.
Yep.
I was the sports editor. She was the editor-in-chief. And so, she did a lot of things. She did Irish dance. She did the newspaper. I think there was something else that she did. And that for that 1 year, she also did cross-country and track and field. And something had to give.
Yeah, no. And all credit to Bridgette. A lot of her strength in the steeplechase, I mentioned how it's one of the more athletic distance events and why Kevin and Joe both excelled at it. Bridgette, in large part, the reason she didn't come back for more seasons of track or cross country is the reason why she was so dang good at steeplechase. It's her Irish dancing. I mean, she was a national, international level dancer that it required a lot of time, a lot of practice, a lot of travel. But the strength that she saw there kind of translated into how athletic she was in her ability, like the flexibility to hurdle and the strength to go over hurdles for 2 miles. A lot of that came over from Irish dance. So I don't know how low it could have gotten, but safe to say she had a lot of room to grow.
And so we'll look at the theoretical data now as 12:25:34. Wins the SEAC 2 out of 28 years, 0 times in the decade, 2, 1, and 2 gold, silver, bronze for 5 medals all time. And coincidentally enough, that all comes in the decade of the 2010s, 5.5 point average. Her median result, 3rd and 4th, and her most frequent result is 4th. And so looking at that, it's an oddity that all of the best, especially since it's not just one medal, as we'll see with some of the other athletes later on the line, where they win one medal and it is in the decade. It was multiple medals in the 2010s where she would have won, and she wouldn't have won anything in the 18 years prior to that. I mean, that jumps out at me, I know. How does that jump out at you?
Well, we see this with some of the other events where maybe the decade is stronger in that event, so maybe one of our guys or girls medals less. It's just the strength of the conference, varies over time, and the steeplechase allowed an opening for her during the 2010s. Granted, she finished 4th, I guess, her one SCAC championship, but I guess it was a coin flip. One out of every 2 years she would medal in the decade, so one more season she would have hardware.
And so, as we wrap up the hurdles for the decade, what are your final thoughts?
Hurdling is hard, folks. I think I practiced once ever. It was pretty bad. Hurdlers like yourself, like Bridgette, Joe, Kevin, Lizzie, Anna, impressive to me. I don't have the flexibility to do what you guys can do.
I know, speaking of flexibility, this will be my last story of the day. So, Tom Perrick, incredibly funny, somewhat nutty kind of guy. I remember he hurdled the same time I was hurdling my first year on the team. He hurdled for most of that first season before he couldn't anymore. And he was impressed with my flexibility as well. And I remember him telling me once, Kevin, I wish I had your flexibility, because I imagine when I'm a grandfather and I'm trying to pick up my grandchild that I'll not be able to get back up.
His hamstrings are tight.
So, well, we'll show you on screen real quick the selections of the team of the decade for the hurdles. Myself in the high hurdles and the long hurdles, Joe Kilmer in steeplechase, and then Lizzie Depew, Anna Brunk, and Bridgette Kennedy, the high hurdles, the long hurdles, and the steeplechase on the women's side. All right, well, we now go to our interview portion as we now zoom in with Lizzie Depew, our 100-meter hurdles selection for the UD Track and Field Team of the Decade. Lizzie, how are you doing this evening?
Good.
Well, first let me say congratulations for making the Team of the Decade. So, first question, kind of an easy one. What's your reaction to being named to the Team of the Decade in the 100-meter hurdles?
Well, I didn't even know that it was something that existed, so I think that's pretty awesome. Track was always a huge, important thing for me in high school and then in college till I got injured, so yeah, pretty exciting.
All right, so tell us a little bit about what you remember best about your time with UD Track.
Let's see. I guess right now what's coming to mind is all the bus rides with everybody and just kind of hanging out and talking and everything. And then just doing hurdle practice. There was a group of people trying to learn hurdles whenever I was doing it, and that was a lot of fun, just practicing together.
And so, had some good times in the high hurdles, school record holder 16:19 in the 100-meter hurdles. What do you attribute your success to?
Practicing. See, the thing about hurdles is you just practice a lot and you get good at them. Because I'm a pretty mediocre sprinter and a pretty terrible distance runner. For hurdles, you just practice and you get better, so it's awesome.
I can relate. I was, as Barbara can also tell you, I also hurdled when I was here. So it was. I know what you mean.
Kevin, when you came on, hurdling was brand new to you. By the end of your third season, it started to click in. I know Lizzie had high school to benefit from extra years of hurdling, so the repetitions definitely helped you too. Just sheer willpower, learning the hurdles over a period of years.
Oh yeah, for sure. It definitely took a while. It took me about 4 years for the high hurdles to finally click. As we talked about earlier, Barbara, it was an accident how I actually figured it out. So, so I know exactly what you mean with the repetition and practice. So back in 2014, I believe. Back in 2014, you ran 6th at the SCAC Championships, scoring 1.4 UD in the high hurdles, Lizzie. Take us through that race. What were you thinking about in that race?
That might have been the race that you came off in. I'm not sure which one that was, but one SCAC race for the finals for the one. Spike just got caught on the corner of the hurdle and came off, and so I stepped down, and then like the next step I only had one sock and one shoe, and then I had to keep switching. I had to switch into 4-stepping all of a sudden and finish the race with one sock and one shoe. I don't remember which year that was, but I think that was 2014.
That would have been your freshman year, right? 14?
Yeah, it was my freshman year that happened.
Well, that was before me. I think that was it, because I don't think that was my race, or I was there with you that day.
Yeah, that was the year before you came. It was also the time I wiped out 400 hurdles. That was a rough meet.
Well, I can relate to the wiping out in the hurdles. That happened. That's conference 2018 for me. But that's actually hilarious that you lost your shoe in the middle of the race.
Yeah, I don't more than think, wow, my spikes are on really. Maybe I should loosen them. It's fine. And then somehow it was just the right angle that it pulled it off, caught the side of the hurdle. But then the girl next to me tore her ACL, so I can't really complain.
So how do you think you would have done if that hadn't happened? Do you think you would have gotten better than sixth?
Probably, because shaking off the shoe between hurdles it definitely throws off your rhythm.
All right, so last question. So looking back on your career at UD for track and field, what do you wish could have gone a little bit differently? Because I know you only had 2 seasons. I imagine that you would have liked to have those other 2 seasons.
Well, I guess what I would have liked to have gone different, getting injured. I still don't quite know what happened, but the trainer said that like the myelin sheath kind of like split a little, and that was causing problems with my calf muscles. So if anything could have gone differently, it would have been that, because that just makes it not fun to try to train. But other than that, I really liked track.
I remember not understanding your injury entirely.
I did.
Like I still can't process what it was. Like I don't get it.
Yeah, apparently, I'm still not 100% sure, because I think the way to test, but apparently, like, just like the sheath around the muscle split because of like pressure in my calf. I don't know. That's what Kai said. He seemed to know what he was talking about.
Well, Lizzie, thank you for joining us this evening.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for having me.
And so that'll do it. Join us again next week where we begin the relays. Very exciting time. I know you're very excited to get to the relays.
Oh, yeah.
So we'll see you next week when we talk relays. I'm Kevin Mcgirt here with Matt Barber. And we'll see you with the relays.